Larry, do you want to introduce yourself?
Okay. Thanks, Scott. I'm Larry Grant. Sayusluk is my Musqueam name, and Hing is my Cantonese name. And I come from Musqueam. My mother's a Musqueam person, and dad's from the village of Seimun in Chungsan, in Guangdong province of China. So, yeah, that's me. That's what I'm also.
We're going to, don't worry, we're going to dig into all that a lot. So Larry, his father came from China, paid the head tax in 1920, and met his mother on the Musqueam Reserve where she grew up. She was a cultural authority, one of the last fluent speakers, probably the last fluent speaker of accompanying. And Larry, his whole life went back and forth between those two poles: the reserve at the mouth of the Fraser River, and Chinatown, where he went to live, and where he went to school in Strathcona, and then Vancouver Tech later on. He then ended up, we're going to skip over that period, probably for about 40 years. He worked as a heavy-duty mechanic, and then as a longshoreman on the docks. And then he retired when he was 62 and began what's probably the most extraordinary third act of his life, in that he started teaching at UBC, eventually became an adjunct professor in the First Nation and Endangered Languages program out there. And he's been doing that now for 27 years. He teaches Hunkaminam, the native tongue of Vancouver, in a program that's given at Musqueam. He's won many awards, and again, I don't have the list here, but they include the President's Medal from UBC, given to him by President Santa Ona. He is Elder in Residence at the First Nations Longhouse at UBC, Elder in Residence at the Justice Institute of British Columbia, where they look at issues of justice. He has many, many other accolades, including honorary doctorate from Simon Fraser University that he was given in 2023. And he's also full-time working in the Musqueam Culture and Language Department as the manager at age 89. So do you want to start at the beginning? August 31st, 1936, your family was in Agassiz picking hops, and your mom wasn't feeling that good.
Yeah. In 1936, our family was up in Agassiz at the Harmesley Hop Yard. As we know, on both sides of our heritage, the Chinese were restricted in many, many things, different fields of professions and good-paying jobs. And we're kind of restricted in exactly just what kind of jobs you could have. So our First Nations people were very, very restricted, and we became the itinerant farm workers for the colonial white people. And our family was up there in 1936, August 31st. It might have been August 31st, it might have been September 1st, not sure. But there was no clock to see the time, and there was no electricity, there's no running water, there's no roads, just the dirt roads. And my mom woke up in the middle of the night, being uncomfortable, and wasn't too sure if it was labor pains or just need to go to the washroom. So she woke up her sisters and said, I'm going to go to the toilet, which was an outhouse. So if I don't come back pretty quick, you come out and look for me and make sure I'm okay. So the sisters, being young sisters at that time, just went right back to sleep. So they just didn't bother. And then they heard a cry of a baby, and that's when they quickly woke up again and took out a mess of newspapers out, and there I was in the outhouse. I'd come about 2.5 months early. So then those blankets became my receiving blanket, and that was really, really something to see. I have no idea how I looked, all wrapped up in newspaper, bringing it back to the cabin. And when our grandfather saw me, he said, well, you don't have to go back to the field tomorrow to watch the baby and make sure he stays alive, because I believe he actually thought I was going to pass away. But miraculously, I survived, and family, out season was over, and family came back, and we ended up in Westminster, Musqueam Indian Reserve Number 1, which is across the river from downtown Westminster. And I have a memory as a little boy of wading in that back eddy before they filled it up with sand and built the cement factory there. And the railroad bridge came right around and behind us and into the really hard center in South Westminster. And we were there living in this little float house, which was like the size of a single-car garage. And it was myself and older brother, my mom, my aunties, and 2 other cousins, and our grandparents. And I have memories of my brother, Gordon, who's passed away now, walking across the new Patula Bridge, carrying baskets that I think some of you that were on tour. There's baskets in the Indigenous learning house. Grandmother made those kinds of baskets, but then she would carry some of them over, and maybe some other goods in there, berries or something like that, and trade it for whatever goods were available from the residents of Westminster. So, and I couldn't follow because I was too little. I couldn't walk across and come back, as there was no other form of transportation at that time for our families and community members. We traveled by boat, by canoe, and came up river or down river by canoe. So that's before our families began to have horse-drawn wagons for transportation. Yep. Right.
Larry and I went on a few road trips while we were writing the book, and one of them is to this place across from New Westminster. There's now, if you can see, 4 bridges, and the sand is very dirty. It's a beach, but you're not going to see it in any WestJet ads. And it's amazing to think how he talks about how they swam in the river there and how clear it was, and they fished all the time. You look at the river now, and it's pretty horrendous what we've done to it. Can we go back a little bit, maybe?
Yeah.
So we know there's an incredible researcher at UBC called Dr. Henry Yu, and he's put together a database of all 97,000 Chinese, mostly men, mostly from Guangdong, who paid the head tax to enter Canada. And Larry's father is one of them. So we know that on the 3rd of June, 1920, he got on the Empress of Asia, Canadian Pacific steamship, amazing state-of-the-art ship, looks like the Titanic, made in Glasgow, probably by my relatives, but that's another story. That's where I come from. And he's set sail for Vancouver, stopped in Yokohama, 17 days to cross the North Pacific, He was in third class, so he wouldn't be allowed on deck. Apparently ate well because all the chefs were Chinese and would give him anything he wanted to eat. And then he arrived in Vancouver on the 20th of June, 1920. And presumably, do you know where he went? Went to the reserve?
Yeah. Well, before I get into that, talking about my brother and my grandmother walking across the Petula Bridge, that was a new bridge in 1939. And tomorrow, we're going to have a media event to name the new replacement for the old Petula Bridge. That's going to be open this fall. So that's what's happening tomorrow. There'll be a news media thing happening.
Are you allowed to tell us what the new name is, or is that top secret?
The naming of... well, it'll be Riverview in English, but it's Stalo Awesome in Hunkaminam. So that'll be the name. The official name is Stalo Awesome, and translation is Riverview. So that is because by coming upriver, we could see Queensboro, we can see the North Arm, the beginning of the North Arm when towards Poplar Island, and then we could look, when we look up, looking upriver, we can see Quicketlum and Catesy, and then across the river we can see Bridgeview. So that is the reason for that name. It's like our people could see all of that as they paddle up and down the river. But now by standing on top of the bridge, you can see that just by turning around. So that's the reason why that was picked, that river. So, yeah. Well, I lost my train of thought.
Back to me. 1920. So your grandfather was already farming on the Musqueam Reserve.
He was here farming, created that farm. The original name for it was Lin On Yuen. And then he had his other half-siblings. The ones I can remember are Ngong, Sikong, Laikong, and that was the half-brother to my grandfather. I never knew his name. Well, and when our dad finally got there, because our dad arrived in Canada, he was a paper son. Came here with a different name, Chang Gun Fun. So he was registered here as a Chang. And but I don't know the family that sold him the papers.
We know from Dr. Yu's research that he paid $500 in cash on arrival. So where did he get that money from? But probably was sent to him by his father, and he was... A lot of people sewed the money into their clothing or hid it in some kind of way, because it's about $20,000 to be carrying in cash.
Yeah. And that was something, because I'm not sure if he had to stay in that Chang family home for a while to make sure the immigration officials didn't find him somewhere else. And but spending time on the farm, and the farm was one of the farms that was closest to the old Musqueam village, then on Yuen and Hong Kong, Yuen, were right beside where the old village was. And our dad would see my two aunties and my mom walking up and down the road, going to the store or traveling or just walking. And I noticed that one woman never really had any companionship. No male was beside her or following her or anything. And went and found out who she was and that she was single. And then he started negotiating for a wife with our grandparents. And I don't know how long they negotiated or talked. And then finally one day, at grandparents said, talking to my mom, this man is going to be your husband. And that was it. There was, at that time, every marriages were arranged, very, very different from today, where young men, young women travel all over the place and fall in love with someone and come home with a spouse. Those were arranged marriages for sharing of resources, keeping the status of the families alive, and that you didn't get a spouse from a lower status family that doesn't have resources they can interchange between communities. So that's the old cultural ways of resource sharing and maintaining the status of families that happened. And I know when I was born, or when Dad married Mom, she was an old maid. She was in her 20s. Because most women at that time, by 16, you were a mother. So, but our mom is 30 years older than I am. So she's probably 25 when our older brother got born. So that's quite an old age for her at that time.
So to leap ahead a little bit, 1940, your parents actually get married in a church.
Yeah.
And the Indian agent finds out and kicks you off the reserve.
Yeah. Our mom was illiterate. Most of our Indigenous family was illiterate. And one day, because we were born, they didn't have a marriage ceremony. That was the old cultural way. They went and were husband and wife at that time. So, and ended up, he said, you get dressed, you get dressed up. We go to town and we'll go to the place in Chinatown, and there's a man going to be talking to us, and he's going to be talking in Chinese. He doesn't speak English. And when he gets all finished talking, you just nod your head and say yes. Yeah. Yeah. So she didn't even know she's getting married. So, I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Chinese Presbyterian Church that was at Kiefer and Gore. It didn't really look like a church to me anyways, but it was a big empty hall that had chairs and everything in it. So, and then the Indian agent found out that her mom got married, and that meant that she was married to a non-status male. So that meant she was no longer a member of the Musqueam Indian band. Took her off the roll, and then Gordy, Larry, and Helen were registered Musqueam band members, children. The big black line went through the three names and said, the bastard children of Agnes Grant, no longer Musqueam band members. So we lost our status and became known as Chinese. And we carried the name Jiang in our birth certificates, but went to Strathcona School using our dad's name, the family name, Hong. So we used that name all the way through Strathcona and all the way through Vancouver Tech High School. Used that pretty much all my life until younger brother Howard became a star baseball pitcher for the baseball team in Dunbar. And they won the provincial competition here in Vancouver. And they were headed to the Nationals in Ottawa, somewhere in Ontario. And he was going by Howard Hong. And when he got his birth certificate, it was Howard Chang. That doesn't match up. You can't go. We can't take you because we don't know who you are, for sure. So he missed that trip. And then later on, a nephew, when he got old enough to get a driver's license, same thing happened. Down at the motor vehicle, no birth certificate that matched. So our family decided, I think we better fix that up and decide which name are we going to take, Dad's name or Mom's name. And I gave a little summary there. I said, we were born by common law, and unwed mothers that had children who were not a wedlock, the children belonged to the mother, not to the father. So I said, we actually belong to our mom, but I don't really care which one we use because I've used Hong all my life. My driver's license, my school records, my land. I'd bought a house by then. It was all registered in a home, so I don't really care. You guys make up your mind. You brothers, older brother was already a grant, because when he got married, he had that same problem, and he wanted a passport to go to the United States. So to Disneyland was brand new then. So wanted to go to Disneyland for his honeymoon, and he was a grant by then. So I said, Helen and Howard and your kids, you make the decision. And then the decision was to take Mom's name. So that's why we're grants today. Right?
I think I said this is the 10th or 11th event we've done, and Larry always adds new details that I didn't know that aren't in the book, which is very frustrating. The bit about Gordon going to Disneyland for his honeymoon, that I did not know.
Yeah, no,
So go back. You're suddenly in Strathcona, living in Chinatown, and you're Chinese. Well, up till then you've been speaking Uncaminum, and you've been Musqueam. What was that like? Was that confusing as for a small boy to become Chinese all of a sudden?
you know, like when we became old enough to go to school, then all the kids at Musqueam were trucked off to the different Indian residential schools. Majority of them went up to Mission City, to the mission at Mission City, Some went to Cocolita, which is at Sardis, BC. Some went to St. Paul's in North Vancouver on the Mission Reserve. And some went to Seychelles, and some went to Port Alberni. So, and when we were old enough to go, Mom said, well, we got to go register you downtown. And said, how come we don't go with our cousins? Because the government says you're different. You're not an Indian, you're a Chinese kid. So, and they don't have Chinese kids in the Indian residential school. So I said, how am I different? I'm half Chinese. I know I'm half Chinese. I know cousins that are half Irish, half Scottish, half Norwegian, half English, half Chilean, yeah. Very much like the person in the Indigenous Learning Center. Her name, Cordecido, is a Chilean name. And the brother of her grandfather, or great-grandfather, I should say the sister, married into Musqueam. So there was, and then there are some Kanaka, some Hawaiians. So why am I different? You know? So all of a sudden, you're not the same as your cousins. I'm different. Why am I different? You know, it's crazy. It really traumatizes you. Then say, oh, I'm really different from my cousin. But I don't belong to Musqueam. I can't go there. Go to Chinatown, to Strathcona. And at that time, a lot of the older guys, like our dad's generation, would be talking to us. And sometimes we couldn't answer. And he said, I thought you were in Chenang's kid. Yeah, we are. How come you don't talk Chinese? You can't be Chinese. You can't even speak Chinese. You don't even know how to answer me. So even in Chinatown, we were different. We weren't fully accepted as Chinese because we couldn't speak the dialect that was being spoken in Chinatown. So that was really, really upsetting. And then as we're growing up right around the Second World War, and all the propaganda films were out, and all the propaganda news was out about the slant-eyed Japanese that are villains, and black guys are villains, white guys are all the heroes. John Wayne is always the hero, killing off Indians or black guys, and all the different cowboy and Indian shows. The white guy was always the victor, and there was never the Indians or other people of color. So you go through that with you in your head, because we, as Indigenous people, did not have our language. It was against the law. We did not have our culture. That was against the law. We didn't have our language. That was against the law. And we didn't have access to resources that sustained our people for thousands and thousands and thousands of generations. So we were excluded socially. So that was something that couldn't understand for many, many, many decades. And that you grow up like that, and you don't have a real identity. You don't have a real self-worth. You don't have a really, really good image of yourself. So that, and many times you don't want to be who you are. So that's the part that is challenging to work through your mind, where I I can say, now I can say I love me. I know who I am. I accept who I am, and I love me. You know, at that time, a long, long time ago, I couldn't do that because I just really didn't want to be me, and it's something I couldn't help.
You said the other day something I found very moving about how you think about your dad every day now and how brave he was. He was 14 when he got on that ship.
When I graduated from Vancouver Technical High School, they knew that I wanted to be a heavy-duty mechanic or a mechanic. And there was a couple of us that the instructor sent us to different employers. And went through Richmond, and there was, at that time, there was no industry in Richmond other than fishing and farming and the Lansdowne racetrack. So he said, you want to be a heavy-duty mechanic, well, you'll have to go to Prince George, fitting tractors up there, Caterpillar dealer. And Prince George, that's a way up in the sticks. Because very little towns were on the way up, not like how it is today. The roads were not very good either. So I said, I can't go. I don't know anybody up there. And I'm going, because he said, you can go to Prince George or Kitimat. Because Kitimat was just being built and getting ready for the aluminum plant that was going. And so was that Prince George project. And I couldn't go. And then I think of my dad. He's 14 years old. And probably got money sewn all over his clothes, making sure he can bring it into Canada. And he's 14 years old. He doesn't know the language, doesn't know the people. He just knows that his dad's here and the family that sold him the papers, they're here. And he comes all the way across the Pacific to be here. There's holy cow. Our grandpa was all that generation. They're so brave to leave their home, their language, their culture, leave everything behind and come to this land that nobody wants them to be here. So that's really, really a brave thing to do. So it was took me a lot of years to realize that was a huge amount of courage that our Chinese heritage, our families that came over, so that's really commendable. Yeah.
That's one of the reasons the book is called Reconciling. Jumping ahead a little bit, well, a lot. So we're going to skip over all the working years. You're 62, you decide it's time to retire, and you're going to do nothing. How did that work out?
Yeah, I was 60, and that's when I know that the Canada Pension Plan, we could extract it out of the funds. And I was getting ready to retire and getting things prepared around the house, getting carpentry stuff, bandsaws, sanders, and things, carving tools. I was going to do just fiddle around with woodwork, make some pieces of furniture, some carving. And young brother Howard, who was the Musqueam band manager at the time, hey, bro, he says, what are you going to do when you retire? I said, well, I don't know what you don't know about the word retire, because you've been an executive person all your life. You should have a pretty good command of English. Retire, I'm going to do nothing. I'm going to relax, fix everything around the yard, maybe do odd jobs. I could still do mechanical work at the time. Don't do that, bro. Don't do that. You've been working every day of your life since you left high school. Don't stop working. You will die if you do. If you don't do anything, you'll die. So why don't you sign up that language program that's just starting? Because I completely forgot about it because I was too old. I thought, what am I going to do with a language program? They say, well, you sign the memorandum, have agreed, the protocol agreement. Just go sign up, get a UBC student number, and get a library card. UBC's got a wonderful library because I know you love to read. I still haven't got a library card. So I signed up to the language program, and by the end of September, Dr. Shaw, the professor, came to me and said, I want you to co-teach the program. I said, no.
I really feel for the teacher. So you were sitting in the back correcting their hunkaminam all the time? Is that what was going on?
Yeah. No, it was one of those crazy things. Because when I was in the class, there were 3 or 4 other people that were arguing about how the island dialect was the official language, and we should be learning that, And I got all upset. I said, no, wait a minute, you guys. And the instructor would be teaching, and someone would say something, and I would argue, and we would stop the whole class. We'd just focus on each other's issues. Didn't care about what was happening with the class, and we drove her to it. She cried quite a few times. It was, and that was probably part of the reason why Dr. Shaw asked me to co-teach. And I said, I don't know anything about her language. She said, yes, you do. You don't even know what you're saying. It's coming out. This is coming out. And that, I said, well, I want to finish the course. It's a 2-year course before I do anything or think of doing anything, and I might come and teach. So at the end of 2 years, and we're in the band office at Musqueam talking about a different program, a humanities program, and in walks late Dr. Michael Ames, the manager of Museum Anthropology, who was in charge of the language program, plunked down 3 sheets of paper and said, just sign these, Larry. I said, yeah, right. You think you're the Indian agent? Just get me to sign any piece of paper. He said, oh, no, 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 no. It's a contract to teach. You said you would teach after 2 years. So here, you sign this and you can come and try it out. Maybe a few weeks or a month or something. If you like it, you can stay and as long as you want. If you don't like it, you just go home. Doesn't matter. Said, yeah, maybe I'll try it for a few months because I never ever spoke publicly. As a machinist and a heavy-duty mechanic, I can talk to equipment because the equipment can talk to me. I can understand. I can just understand all the different sounds that are coming from a piece of equipment. But you don't have to talk to the equipment. And the first time, it was after that 2 years that the first time I spoke publicly, really hard again. Said, hey, bro, I can't make it. I got to do something. Can you go down to UBC next week and do the land acknowledgement? And there's a Aboriginal graduates graduating. But I want you to speak Hunkaminam. Yeah, I can do that, But I don't know what else to say. It doesn't matter. Just say whatever you say. Whatever will come to your head, you'll say it. Yeah? So I walked in there, and they say, yeah, it's there on the stage inside the Great Hall. So I walk in the Great Hall, and I hesitate just like this. I'm looking. And the chairs were lined up. And the aisle was just off to the side. And oh no. Auntie Irene, she's the auntie that used to visit our mom. And they'd be there for a week, 2 weeks, a month, visiting at our mom's place. One speaking Hunkaminam, the other one speaking Hulkaminam. Just back and forth. Never switching dialect, but understanding each other.
And she was sitting there in the
Right,
front row?
right there. And I just started to pour sweat, just like I was in a shower. I couldn't believe it, how wet my clothes could get. And I'm going to see it. So I thought, going to squeak, and she's going like this. Buenas Joanas, Polanas, and she's going like this. It took me 5 years to stop sweating.
But she nodded and she gave you the thumbs up, right?
Yeah, that nod was the thumbs up.
And you said before that when you speak, especially at the beginning, you could feel your mother speaking or your aunts.
Yeah, because I stopped speaking when around 8 or 10, because Dad was upset at Mom speaking Hunkaminam to us. No problem responding to Mom, but because our dad wasn't allowed to live with our mom on the reserve, and he was all as a truck driver on the farm, he was very seldom home, and very seldom spoke to us in Cantonese. He was trying to speak English to us. And when he did speak Cantonese, many times he couldn't answer properly. So he was upset. So stopped speaking, and I never spoke for about 50 years. But we were always involved in cultural activity. And cultural activity at Musqueam, over Sabina, over Vancouver Island, and different communities there. And some communities from Stalo area and Capilano on North Shore. And knew the words, could understand the words, but never spoke for 50 years. And it was really challenging. Started to speak, and I could hear Mom talking. Her words were coming out, and the things she said, and her grandmother's words were coming out. And it's real freaky. Begin to dream, remember dreams. I don't really remember dreams. And old people, no faces, just old people talking. And holy cow. In our culture, Musqueam culture, when old people come to your dreams and talk, that means they go like this. Come join us, And holy cow, my lifetime must be coming to an end, I talked to my wife, and she said, are they doing this? I said, no, they're just talking. They're talking. She says, well, they're not calling you. They're encouraging you. I said, oh, that's really scary to hear Grandma's voice, and Mom's voice. Because there was no sound, but you can imagine the sound. You can actually hear. I never believed that, but I believed it after that. You can actually hear exactly how they sound when you hear words coming. Oh, it scared the life out of me. But I've been in the language program since 2001, and I'm still there. So I haven't gotten tired of it yet. And I didn't think I would live this long. No, our dad passed away when he turned 51, so we didn't expect to live more than 65, 70 maximum. But here I am, still kicking around. Yeah.
One of the fun things about doing this project is that Larry treats me like a kid because I'm so much younger than him, which is nice. I don't really feel that way the rest of my life. Just then, it makes me feel young.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's really hard, a challenge for. I used to wonder why the old guys used to say, all those young people, And I see that. And the other day, I was speaking to someone, and she said, I'm 60. I said, yeah, I'm almost 90. You're a younger person. And I didn't realize I was doing that with Scott. Yeah.
That's my age too.
Yeah.
I think we should tell one more story. And Uncle Edmund is here, and he, when you were 77 years old, so a long time ago, you found out from Uncle Edmund that the village where your father grew up was going to be destroyed. The bullet train was going to be put through there. So you ended up going back to China, or back to China, going home for the first time.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that? Sarah was there too.
Yeah, we were always afraid to go to China because we knew that Dad wanted to bring us there and leave us there for 5 years or 10 years. and before bringing us back. And
The Canadian government wasn't very friendly about the idea either.
yeah,
Well, Howard says that he was always scared because he thought he couldn't get back into the country.
yeah. I was always afraid of that. So we carried that fear into our old age. And then Uncle Edmund came and talked to us one day over at Gordy's place. Said, if you want to see your dad's village, where your family comes from, you better go see it pretty quick, because bullet train is coming through. China's going to bulldoze that whole community. And Gordy and I almost immediately said, yeah, we'll go. Helen didn't go for physical reasons. And Howard is kind of, let me think, And right up until the last few weeks, I guess, he just hemmed and hawed and couldn't make up his mind. And finally he said, yeah, I'll go. And then he came. So he was happy. And the best part, I think, of that whole trip was walking through the gate, walking through the arch. Edmund said, stop the bus and we'll get out. Get off the bus. We won't don't go through that gate in the bus. We'll walk in the gate, in the path, to get to the house, so that we can visualize it and see where our grandparents and our family from Canada supplied majority of the money or all of the money to build that. And we got out looking, the holy cow, we're walking in the steps of our ancestors. Where Dad was as a boy, where Grandpa was here as a boy, and the rest of the family was here, before going to China, before going to Canada. And walking through there, and was looked up, and this feeling came over. It's a once-in-a-lifetime feeling. I just couldn't believe the feeling. And my mind just said, I'm home. I'm home. I come from here. I belong here. This is our family home. And never, ever, up to that point, ever thought of China as my home. It was part of my heritage. But that moment was, I'm home. And we met about 50 relatives that were there. But I always encourage everyone that comes from another place, I don't care where, go home. Walk in the footsteps of your ancestors. See where the beginning of your families were. Get to understand them a little bit. And you don't even have to go visit people. Just walk in the village that the original settlers of your family came from and see what it does to your emotional life and what it does to your outlook on who you are. And I'm not saying go home. Yeah. Say go home, go home, go home. Yeah. Look, experience, and understand the reasons why some of your family came this way. And that will really make a big difference.
All right, I think we should end there. Thank you very much for to listen.